Hello all, welcome to the next session on computer graphics and visualization. In this particular video session, we will be discussing about the type of illumination models. We'll be talking about what do you mean by the ambient light and ambient reflection coefficient. We'll be talking about the diffuse light. What do you mean by diffuse reflection? And also we will be discussing about the specular component of light along with the Phong model. So these are the things we will be discussing in this particular video session. Let us begin with understanding what do we mean by ambient light. Now the ambient light produces a uniform ambient lighting that is same for all the objects, and it approximates the global diffuse reflections from the various illuminated surfaces. So in simple words, you can consider ambient light as a light which is uniform for all the points on a given surface. Okay, so it's uniform ambient light. So what do you mean by that? Every point on a given object under a given ambient light will appear of the same color, irrespective of the waving angle, irrespective of the orientation of the surface. All the point on a given surface which is illuminated appears of the same color for a given ambient colored light. So ambient reflections produced or ambient reflections are simply a form of diffuse reflection, and they are independent of the viewing direction and the spatial orientation of the object. So no matter how you view a given object, no matter how what is the orientation or the spatial orientation of a given surface, irrespective of these things, the object will still appear, or all the points on a given object will appear of to be of the same color. That is the speciality of the ambient light. So it's a uniform lighting. So all the points on the surface of an object which is to be illuminated will be displayed with a given ambient colored light. Now this color does not change depending on this particular ambient reflections caused by ambient light will not be depending upon the viewing direction. No matter from which angle you view a given object, it will appear the same under a given ambient light. And also no matter how you orient the or how you change the spatial orientation of an object, no matter how you change the angle of a given object or how you change the orientation of a given object, that will not be interfering with the type of ambient light that is actually causing the surface to illuminate, right? So reflections produced by the ambient light illumination, so they are independent of the viewing direction as well as the spatial orientation of the given surface. However, the amount of incident ambient light that is reflected depends upon surface optical properties, so which determines how much of the incidental energy is or the incident light energy is reflected and how much is absorbed. Even though the amount of reflection from the ambient light is independent of the surface spatial orientation as well as the viewing angle, but the surface properties will be considered. So what do you mean by surface property? If the surface is a very high reflective surface as a mirror, then the entire light may be reflected back. Okay, so the surface optical properties determine how much of the incident light energy should be reflected and how much of the light energy should be absorbed by a given object, right? So this is about the ambient light. Remember, it's a uniform light that is same for all the objects, and it approximates global diffuse reflections from various illuminated surfaces. Now reflections caused by this ambient light are independent of the viewing angle or the viewing direction as well as the spatial orientation of a given surface, but the amount of incident ambient light that is reflected depends upon the surface optical properties, which mean surface may be very highly reflective, such as a mirrored surface, or it may be a very rough surface. So surface optical properties determine how much of the incident energy is reflected and how much is absorbed. Let us move on to the next type of reflection, that is called as the diffuse reflection. Now in diffuse reflection, the incident light on the surface is scattered with equal intensity in all directions independent of the viewing direction or the viewing position. Now, such surfaces are called as ideal diffuse reflectors because they follow something called as a Lambertian cosine's law. So these ideal diffuse reflectors are also called as Lambertian reflectors because the reflected radiant light energy from many points on the surface is calculated using a law called as the Lambert's cosine law. Now this Lambert's cosine law states that the amount of radiant energy, so coming from a small surface area specified by dA in a direction of phi n relative to the surface and normal is proportional to the cos of phi n. So what is this phi n? So phi n is the angle between the radiant energy of light and the surface normal vector. So the Lambert's cosine law states that the amount of radiant energy coming from a small surface area dA in the direction of phi n relative to the surface normal is proportional to the cos of phi n. Now, the intensity of the light in this direction can be computed as the ratio of the magnitude of the radiant energy per unit time divided by the projection of the surface area in the radiation direction. The equation for the intensity can be specified as it's equal to the ratio of the radiant energy per unit time divided by the project area. Looking at this particular diagram, so as per the Lambert's law, the radiant energy is given by cos phi n. So radiant energy per unit time is given by cos phi n, and the projected area is given as dA. So we have surface area dA here into cos phi n. So intensity will be proportional to the ratio of cos phi n divided by dA into cos phi n, which is going to give us a constant value. Now, assuming that every surface is to be treated as an ideal diffuse reflector or a Lambertian surface, we can set up a parameter kd for each surface that determines the fraction of the incident light that is to be scattered as diffuse reflections. Assuming that every surface is a Lambertian surface or ideal diffuse reflectors, we set up a parameter kd, which is called as a diffuse reflection coefficient for each surface that determines the fraction of the incident light that is to be scattered as diffuse reflections. So based upon the parameter kd for a given surface, we are going to determine what is the amount of the incident light is going to scattered as diffuse reflections. What is the amount of light that is going to be scattered for a given amount of incident light. So that is decided by considering the value of this diffuse reflection coefficient for a given surface. This particular parameter called as the diffuse reflection coefficient, or it is also called as the diffuse reflectivity. There are two names for this particular parameter kd. It's either called as diffuse reflection coefficient or the diffuse reflectivity. The ambient contribution to the diffuse reflection at any point on a surface is simply given as intensity of the ambient light that causes or contributes to diffuse reflection, that is given by I ambient diffuse. So how you read it? The intensity of the ambient light that contributes to the diffuse reflection is given as the product of the diffuse reflection coefficient, that is kd, into the intensity of the ambient light, which is represented by. So whenever we are talking about the diffuse reflection, we need to consider a parameter called as the diffuse reflection coefficient or the diffuse reflectivity, represented by the symbol kd, which determines what is the amount of light that is incident on a given surface will be scattered. Now the value for this diffuse reflection coefficient depends upon surface. It varies from surface to surface. Now the equation to compute what is the amount of the ambient incident light contributes to the diffuse reflection, it is given by this particular equation. How do we read this equation? Intensity of the ambient light that contributes to the diffuse reflection. So I ambient diffuse. So intensity of the ambient light that contributes to the diffuse reflection is given as the product of the diffuse reflection coefficient into the intensity of ambient light, right? Now, as you can see in this particular diagram, the surface that is perpendicular to the light direction is illuminated more than an equal size surface at an oblique angle to the incoming light direction. As we can see here, if this is the incoming light direction, if the surface is perpendicular to the incoming light direction, such a surface will be illuminated more than an equal size surface which is at an oblique angle to the incoming light direction. So in case of diffuse reflection, the orientation of the spatial orientation of the surface with respect to the light source also matters. Remember, in case of diffuse reflection, the spatial orientation of the surface with respect to the incoming light source is also taken into account, which was not considered while calculating the amount of ambient light. Right? So in case of diffuse reflection, we need to consider the spatial orientation of a surface with respect to the direction of the incident light. Now at any point on a surface position, we can denote the unit normal vector as n and the unit direction vector to a point source as L. If you look at this particular diagram over here, we have a surface whose surface normal vector is given by the vector n, and we have one more vector L, which is the unit vector or unit direction vector in the direction of the point source. So this is the direction in which we have a point light source. Now the angle between the unit vector n, that is the surface normal vector, and the unit vector in the direction of the light source given by the vector L is given by theta. So theta is the angle between the surface normal vector n and the unit direction vector to a point source L. The angle between the vector L and n is given by theta. Okay. Now, taking into account this particular angle between the vector L and vector n, we can model the amount of incident light on a surface from a source with the intensity IL has. Now, the amount of incident light can be modeled for a given surface from a given point source as IL comma incident is equal to IL cos theta, where theta is the angle between the surface normal vector n and the unit vector or unit direction vector in the direction of the point light source. So the amount of incident light on a given surface from a light source with the intensity IL is given as the intensity of the light source into cos of the angle between the surface normal vector and the vector L is basically theta. So the amount of incident light on a surface from a source with the intensity IL is given as the intensity of the incident light into cos of theta. We can model diffuse reflections from a light source with the intensity IL using the calculation. Now, the equation for the diffuse reflection is given as, so IL stands for intensity, comma diffuse specifies the intensity of the diffuse reflection from a point light source with intensity IL is given as the diffuse reflection coefficient KD into the amount of incident light on a given surface from a point source with intensity IL. That we have just calculated that here. So we can replace this term with IL cos theta. So the amount of diffuse reflection from a point light source with the intensity IL is equal to the product of the diffuse reflection coefficient KD into the intensity of the incident light IL into cos of theta, which is basically the angle between the surface normal vector n and the unit vector in the direction of the point light source, which is given by the vector L. So this is the equation to model the diffuse reflection from a light source with the intensity IL. So what is the equation? The amount of diffuse reflection from a light source with the intensity IL is given as the diffuse reflection coefficient KD into IL, where IL is the intensity of the incident light into cos theta, where theta is the angle between the vector n and the vector L. Now the diffuse reflection equation for a single point source illumination at a surface position can be expressed in this particular form. Okay, the diffuse reflection equation for a point source with the intensity IL can be given as the diffuse reflection coefficient KD into the intensity of the light source, which is IL, into cos theta. We can represent that as the dot product of the vector L and vector N, right? So intensity of the diffuse reflection equation for a single point source illumination at a surface position can be expressed as the diffuse reflection coefficient KD into intensity of the point light source into n dot L, that is if n dot L is greater than 0. Else, if the value of the dot product of n dot L is less than or equal to 0, in that case, the diffuse reflection equation will be equals to 0. So this is what we have in this particular expression. Now, the unit direction vector L to a nearby point light source is calculated using the surface position and the light source position, which is given by the equation L is equal to the difference between the position of the point light source minus a given position on a surface, which is given as P surface, divided by the magnitude of this difference. So this is the equation for calculating the unit direction vector L to a nearby point light source. To do that, we need to have two positions. One is a point on a given surface, which is given as P surface, and one more is the position of the point light source, which is given by P source. So using these two positions, we can calculate the value for the unit direction vector L in the direction of the point light source. So L is given as P source minus P surface divided by P source minus P surface and its magnitude. Now we can combine the ambient and the point source intensity calculations to obtain an expression for the total diffuse reflection at a given surface position. So we can combine the ambient and the point source intensity calculations to obtain the expression for the total diffuse reflection. Till now, whatever diffuse reflection we have calculated, it was one part of the diffuse reflection. Now, in order to calculate the total diffuse reflection, so we need to consider the ambient and the point source intensity as well. Let us see how can we do that. Now, using a parameter Ka. Now, Ka is basically the ambient reflection coefficient. Remember, we have a parameter called as the ambient reflection coefficient, which contributes to the reflections for a given ambient light. It is irrespective of the viewing angle again. It is irrespective of the viewing angle, but maybe depending upon the optical properties of a given surface, right? Using the ambient reflection coefficient Ka, we can write the total diffuse reflection equation for a single point source as intensity of the diffuse reflection is equal to the sum of, basically here we have a product of the ambient reflection coefficient Ka into the intensity of the ambient light. So how do we read this? The first term here, it's basically the product of the ambient reflection coefficient Ka into the intensity of the ambient light given by Ia plus the product of the diffuse reflection coefficient Kd into the intensity of the point source IL into the dot product of the vector n dot L. That is, if the value of the dot product is greater than 0. Else, if the value of the dot product n dot L is less than or equal to 0, then the intensity of the diffuse light will be equal to only the product of the ambient reflection coefficient into the intensity of the ambient light. So this is the expression for the or equation for the total diffuse reflection, taking into account both the ambient light as well as the light from the particular point source with a given intensity IL. So intensity of diffuse light or intensity of the diffuse reflection is given as the product of ambient reflection coefficient Ka into the ambient light intensity Ia plus the diffuse reflection coefficient Kd into intensity of the point source IL into the dot product of the two vectors, vector L n, which is the surface normal vector, and the vector L, which is a unit direction vector in the direction of the point light source. So this will be the equation for the total diffuse reflection if the value of the dot product n dot L is greater than 0. Else, if the dot product of n dot L is less than or equal to 0, in that case, the intensity of diffuse light will be equal to only the product of the ambient reflection coefficient and the intensity of the ambient light. Here in this particular diagram from the textbook, so we have a demonstration of the diffuse reflections from a spherical surface illuminated by a point source emitting white light with the values of the reflectivity coefficient Kd in the range from 0 to 1 and the value of ambient reflection coefficient is equal to 0. Okay, so as you can see, if the value of k will be set to 0 for all these spheres, a spherical surface, whereas we are varying the value of the diffuse reflection coefficient kd from 0 to 1. So when the value of diffuse reflection coefficient kd is equal to 0, the sphere entire is totally dark. There won't be any illumination. So when it is increased to 0.2, we can see there is some white highlights here on this particular surface. Similarly, you increase it further to 0.4. Now we can make out it's actually a spherical surface. Whereas in these two diagrams, we cannot make out the curvature of a given spherical surface here, right? It appears like a circle. Whereas when we increase the value of diffuse reflection coefficient kd to 0.4, so we can make out it is a spherical surface by looking at the variation in the shades of this particular spherical surface, right? When we increase it further to 0.6, remember the intensity of the ambient line in this example, IL is equal to white. So RGB value will be set to 1, 1, 1. As you can see, more white light is falling on this particular sphere. You can clearly make out it's a sphere here. And observe the variation in the shades. So this is the specialty of the diffuse reflection. So point to point, the intensity may vary. Unlike the ambient light, which is common for all the points on a given surface, diffuse reflection light may vary depending upon the spatial orientation of the surface as well as the viewing angle. Now, this is the output for the value of kd equals to 0.6. We further increase it to 0.8, the sphere becomes more brighter, right? The sphere appears more brighter here, and ultimately we set it to the maximum value of 1. So kd will be set to 1. We get a white sphere with uh, a dark grayish kind of a ambient lighting because the value of k is set to 0. So this is how we demonstrate or how we understand the value of the diffuse reflection coefficient kd and how does it impact the output while we are rendering the 3D models using the lighting effects. How does the diffuse reflection coefficient affect the output when we are trying to illuminate a given 3D object? Let us look at one more example from the textbook. Now this diagram here, it shows diffuse reflections from a spherical surface, so illuminated with a dark gray ambient light and a white point light source using 5 values for Ka and 5 values for Kd, so both are varying from 0 to 1. So here in this particular example, it's an extension of your previous example. Here rather than increasing or altering the value of only one coefficient, that is Kd, here Ka and Kd both are varying for 5 different values ranging from 0 to 1. Remember here the ambient light that is considered here is the intensity of the ambient light is dark gray, okay, and the intensity of the point source which is used for diffuse reflection is white light. Let us see what happens. So here we have a sphere where the value of Ka, ambient reflection coefficient, as well as the diffuse reflection coefficient, both are set to 0. The sphere appears very dark. We cannot make out any of the surface orientation. We cannot make out it's a sphere. Okay, so let us just increase Ka by 0.25, and we are not increasing the Kd. So this is how it looks like. So there is a bit of a tinge of dark gray, which is common for the entire sphere. Similarly, we increase it to 0.5, it appears a bit more darker, 0.75 a little more darker, and 1. So here the sphere appears to have the entire sphere which looks to be filled with, or the entire surface appears to be of the same color, which is basically the contribution of the ambient light intensity, that is dark gray. Similarly, in this particular row, we are initializing Ka to 0, but only varying the value of Kd. So what can you observe here is K is set to 0 for all these 4 subsequent spheres here, spherical surfaces here. So in this example, the value of Kd is incremented or increased to 0.5. So in that case, we can make out there is some uh, highlights, very light white highlights on a sphere, okay, which is much more clearly visible when we increase the value of Kd to 0.5, right? Now this particular spherical surface looks like a sphere because of the variation in the shades on the different surface points. Similarly, we further increased the value of KD to 0.75. So here we can see there is more intensity of the point source which is visible or which is incident on a given surface. And you can also observe the variation across the boundaries here as well. Similarly, this is an example where the value of KD is set to 1 and the value of K is set to 0. So we can make out that the white light is incident on this particular sphere. And we can also make out the orientation of the surface. So as we are moving towards back of the sphere, the light intensity varies. It basically intensity is slightly degraded there. So we have dark shading at the end. So this diffuse light is basically used to understand the surface orientation. Highs and lows on a given surface can be clearly identified taking into account this diffuse reflection model. Okay, depending upon the surface orientation, every point on a surface may vary in intensity. So depending upon the orientation of the surface as well as the viewing direction, we can get different colors for a given point on a surface. Now this is an example where the value of Ka is set to 1 as well as the value of Kd is set to 1. So we have a very bright sphere here and there is a very light uh, shades of dark gray. Okay, very little shades of darker gray over here. So that is an example as to how can we the how can the or how does the variation in the ambient reflection coefficient and the diffuse reflection coefficient affect the output for eliminating a given 3D object. So this is a demonstration that is given in the textbook. So that is about the diffuse reflection. Let us move on to a very important model in illumination. We call it as a Phong model. And this was developed by a person named Phong Wei Tong in order to understand the specular reflection for a given surface. Now, in this particular illustration, in this particular diagram here, so we can clearly make out so what are the different components or how does the different reflections contribute to the realistic view of a given object. So when we are talking about the Phong reflection, we take into account the ambient light, the diffuse light as well as the specular. Now in the previous explanation, we saw what do you mean by ambient light. As we had discussed earlier, the ambient light is uniform throughout the entire surface. As you can see here, there is no variation in the light intensity for a given ambient light. It is equal for all the points on a given surface. There is no variation for the ambient light for a given surface because there is independent of the surface orientation as well as the viewing angle. So this is the ambient light. Now when it comes to the second component, that is the diffuse light, we can make sure we can understand the surface orientations. The ups and downs on a given surface can be clearly understood here because there will be variation in the amounts of diffuse light reflections, so which cause this shading, which gives us a much more realistic view of a given object, right? So you can see the surface which is in the direction or which is facing towards the light direction is appearing brighter, and the parts of the surface which are not in the direction of the light source are appearing to be of the darker shade. So this variation on this shade, which gives us a very realistic rendering of a given 3D illumination, 3D object illumination. Basically we can make out the shading on a given surface to understand the ups and downs on a given surface. Now there is a third component which we did not discuss till now, that is called as a specular. Now these are the points where there are nearly total reflections on the surfaces. Okay, on a given surface there are some points at which the entire amount of incident light will be reflected back. That results in this white highlights or the white spots on a given surface. So these are the points on the surface where the almost the entire light that is falling on those points will be reflected back. Now the combination of ambient, diffuse and specular reflection will give us something called as a Phong reflection. You can just make out the understand the speciality of this Phong reflection. We get a very realistic rendering of a 3D object illumination, right? We can understand the surface texture also to some extent, uh, not exactly the surface texture, but the ups and downs on a given surface and how rough or smooth a given surface is, how shiny a surface is, and what is the ambient light. All these things can be understood looking into this particular Phong reflection model. So it takes into account the ambient light, the diffuse, as well as the specular reflection. Now, the brightest spot or the specular reflection that we can see on a shiny surface is a result of total or near total reflection of the incident light in a concentrated region around the specular reflection angle. Now we have some angle called as a specular reflection angle. So this is the angle that is used to determine the amount of uh, specular reflection from a given surface. So remember, so we have the ambient light where the entire surface appears to be of the same color. There won't be any variation on the shades in case of ambient light. Whereas in case of diffuse light, there will be lots of variations on the given surface depending upon the ups and lows on a given surface, depending upon the orientation of the light source, depending upon the light source position and the viewing angle, we can obtain the variation in the shades on a given surface. Whereas when it comes to the specular reflection, we have the regions or the spots on a given surface where there is total or near total reflection of the incident light. Now, this amount of specular reflection is depending upon an angle called as the specular reflection equation. Taking into account these three types of reflection, we have a model called as a Phong reflection model. Now, for a Phong reflection model, we need to consider four vectors. A very, very important question for your exam, frequently asked in the university examination. Explain the Phong model and the different vectors used in it. So, Phong model basically uses four different vectors. As it is shown in this particular diagram, it uses one vector called as the vector n, which is basically the unit normal surface vector. So, the specular reflection angle equals the angle of the incident light with the two angles measured on the opposite sides of this unit normal surface vector n. Taking into account the surface normal surface normal vector n, so we have the specular reflection angle given by the angle of theta, which is also equal on the opposite sides of this particular surface normal vector, right? The angle between the vector n and the specular reflection direction is theta, which is also equal to the angle between the surface normal vector n and the unit vector in the direction of the point light source. So this theta is called as the specular reflection angle, which we discussed earlier, right? So the specular reflection are caused by the result of total or near total reflection of the incident light in a concentrated region around this specular reflection angle, which is represented by the angle theta here. So that is the first vector. The first vector that we have is the surface unit surface normal vector n. Then we have one more vector here called as the vector r. It represents the unit vector in the direction of the ideal specular reflection. So this will be the direction of the unit. This will be the direction of the ideal specular reflection. Okay. Then we have a unit vector L. This is a unit vector directed towards the point light source. So this is the direction where we have a point light source, which is basically emitting a light of a particular intensity. Let me just represent a point light source, something like this. So the unit vector L will be a vector in the direction of a point light source, which is emitting a particular intensity of light and which is placed at a particular position. So we have one more vector, the vector v, which is a unit vector pointing to the viewer from the selected surface positions. So vector v is unit vector pointing to the viewer. Okay, it is pointing towards the direction of the viewer from a selected surface position, maybe a camera or it may be the human eye. Okay, something like this. So this is the unit vector pointing in the direction of the viewer from a given surface position. So remember, in case of Phong model, we take into account the four vectors. First vector is the vector n, which is the unit surface normal vector, which is used to identify the orientation of a vector, which is always perpendicular to every point on a given surface. Then we have the second vector, the vector r, which is a unit vector in the direction of the ideal diffuse reflection. Okay, I mean the ideal specular reflection. Then we have the third vector, vector L, which is a unit vector directed towards the point light source, which is emitting a light of a given intensity. This is the direction of the vector L. And then we have the vector V, which is a unit vector pointing to the viewer from a selected surface position. So this is from where we are going to view a particular point on a given surface. Now the angle phi is the viewing angle relative to the specular reflection direction r. So this angle phi we call it as the weaving angle relative to the specular reflection direction r. Remember, there are four vectors: vector n, which is the unit surface normal vector; we have the vector r, which is a unit vector in the direction of the ideal diffuse reflection; we have the vector n, which is the unit vector in the direction of the point light source; and we have a vector v, which is a unit vector in the direction of a viewer from a given surface position. Remember, the angle between the surface normal vector n and the unit reflection vector r is theta, which is also the angle between the vector n and vector l. The angle between the vector r, which is the reflection vector, and the vector v will be phi, which is also called as a viewing angle, which is the viewing angle relative to the surface specular reflection direction. Now, this empirical model for calculating the specular reflection range was developed by a person called Fong Butong, and hence it is called as the Fong specular reflection model, or simply the Fong model. It sets the intensity of the specular reflection proportional to cos ns of phi. Okay, so taking into account this angle phi, we can calculate the intensity of specular reflection, which is proportional to cos phi raised to the power of ns. This should be cos phi raised to the power of ns. This should be an exponent. Ns should be an exponent here. Okay, so this Phong reflection model, or Phong specular reflection model, was developed by a person named Fong Buitong in order to model the specular reflection range, and it sets the intensity of the specular reflection proportional to cos phi raised to the power of ns. Now the angle phi can be obtained, or it can be assigned the values in the range from 0 to 90 degrees, so that the value of cos phi varies from 0 to 1. So while taking into account the weaving angle, as we had seen earlier, this value for the angle phi can be assigned from 0 to 90 degrees, so that the value of cos phi varies from 0 to 1. Now the value assigned to the specular reflection exponent ns, that ns is called as the specular reflection exponent, it is determined by the type of surface that we want to display. Okay, if you want to display a very shiny surface, we are going to assign some value for n. If you want to if you want to assign, or if you want to consider a very if you want to display a very rough surface, then we assign some other value for ns, so that ns is called as the specular reflection exponent. So the value for the specular reflection exponent ns is determined by the type of surface that we want to display. A very shiny surface is modeled with a large value of ns, say 100 or more, and smaller values down to 1 are used for duller surfaces. So for perfect reflector, so ns is infinite, such as a mirror. So for that, such surfaces, for a perfect reflector surfaces, we set the value of this specular reflection exponent ns to infinity. For rough surfaces such as a chalk or a cinder block, the value of ns is assigned a value near 1. Okay, so that is about the specular reflection coefficient, or a specular reflection exponent ns. Remember, the intensity of the specular reflection is proportional to cos phi raised to the power of ns, where phi is the weaving angle relative to the uh, direction of the specular reflection vector r. We can assign the value for the angle phi, the weaving angle, from 0 to 90 degrees, so that we can vary the value of cos phi from 0 to 1, whereas we can assign any value for ns, the specular reflection coefficient, depending upon the type of surface we want to display. The value of ns will be very high for shiny surfaces, and it will be very low for the up to 1 for very dull surfaces. Now, using the spectral reflection function w of theta, we can write the Phong specular reflection model as the intensity of the specular reflection. It is given by something like this: the intensity of specular reflection is equal to w theta into the intensity of the point light source IL into cos phi raised to the power of ns. So this is the function for the intensity of the specular reflection, right? So intensity of the specular reflection is equal to the spectral reflection function w theta into IL, which is the intensity of the point source, into cos phi raised to the power of ns, where IL is the intensity of the light source, phi is the viewing angle relative to the specular reflection direction r. Now, because vector v and vector r are the unit vectors in the viewing and the specular reflection directions, we can calculate the value of cos phi with the dot product of the vectors v dot r. We can also calculate the value of cos phi using the dot product of the vector v, which is the vector in the unit vector in the direction of the viewer, as well as the vector r, which is the unit vector in the direction of the ideal specular reflection. The value of the dot product of v dot r, you can use it to calculate the value of cos phi. Now, in addition, no specular effects are generated for the display of a surface if the vectors v and l are on the same side of the normal vector n, or if the light source is behind the surface. Remember, no specular effects are generated for the display if the vectors v and l are on the same side of the normal vector n. Let's go back to this diagram. If the vector v and the vector n, if they're on the same side of the surface normal vector n, in that case, no specular reflection will be uh, generated. Okay, so we cannot have any specular reflections that are generated if the vectors v and vector l are on the same side of the normal vector. Also, if the light source is behind the surface. So we can determine the intensity of the specular reflection due to a point light source at a surface position. So with the calculation, so intensity of the specular reflection is equal to, so this particular parameter here, you can call it as specular reflection coefficient Ks into IL, which is the intensity of the point source, into the dot product of the vector v dot r raised to the power of ns, where ns is the specular reflection exponent. That is, if the value of v dot r is greater than 0 and the dot product of n dot l is greater than 0. That is to satisfy these two conditions. Else, the specular reflection will be equal to 0 if v dot r is less than or equal to 0, or if n dot l is less than or equal to 0. So what this means is, intensity of specular reflection will be equal to the product of the specular reflection coefficient Ks into the intensity of the point source IL into the dot product of V dot R raised to the power of Ns, where Ns is the specular reflection exponent. So this will be the value for intensity if and only if the vectors V and L are on the same side or on the different opposite sides of the surface normal vector n. If they're on the same side, in that case, the intensity of the specular reflection will be equals to 0. That is about the equation for the specular reflection, taking into account the different vectors used in the Phong model. So we have used the surface normal vector n, we have used the vector L in the direction of the point light source, we have used the vector R in the direction of the ideal specular reflection, and we've used one more vector v in the direction of the viewer from a given surface position. Now the direction of the vector r, that is the reflection vector, can be computed from the directions of the vector l and vector n as it is shown in this particular diagram over here. We can compute the direction of vector r if we know the directions of vector l and vector n. The projections of vector the projection of the vector L onto the direction of the surface normal vector has a magnitude that is equal to the dot product of n dot L. The projection of vector L onto the surface normal vector here, which is represented here, the magnitude of that particular projection will be equal to the dot product of the vector n dot L, which is equal to the magnitude of the projection of the unit vector r onto the direction of n. So taking into this account this particular diagram over here, so we can observe that the sum of the vectors r plus l is equal to 2 times n dot l into n, and the specular reflection vector r is obtained as r is equal to 2 into the dot product of n dot l into n minus l. So this is the equation for the specular reflection vector. So if we know the direction of the surface normal vector n and a vector L, which is a unit vector in the direction of the point source. So this is the equation we can use to compute the direction of the specular reflection vector. Now there is a somewhat simplified Phong model which is used to obtain obtaining a halfway vector h between the vector L and vector v to calculate the range of specular reflections. We can introduce one more vector, the fifth vector, which is called as the halfway vector, which is halfway between the vector L and the vector V as it is shown in this particular diagram, in order to find the range of specular reflections. So if you replace V dot R in the Phong model with the dot product of N dot H, so this simply replaces the empirical cos phi calculation with the empirical cos alpha calculation. What is this alpha? It is the angle between the surface normal vector N and the half-wave vector H. So the half-wave vector H is given as L plus V divided by the magnitude of L plus V. This is the half-wave vector, which is basically the vector which is halfway between the vector L and the vector V. So it is used to calculate the range of specular reflections. So if you replace the V dot R in the Phong model with the dot product of N dot H, this simply replaces the empirical cos phi calculation with the empirical cos alpha calculation, where alpha is the angle between the half-wave vector H and the surface normal vector N. In this video session, we discuss what we mean by the ambient light. So what do you mean by the diffuse reflection? What do we mean by the Phong model? Different vectors used in the Phong model in order to understand the specular reflection. And at the end, we discuss the half-wave vector. With this, let us conclude this video session. Thank you.